Ben Swann, anchorman at Cincinnati Fox affiliate WXIX Fox 19, and host of the nationally popular Reality Check segment. Mr. Swann, welcome back.
Jerry, how you doing, man?
Is this meet the new boss same as the old boss, or meet the old boss same as the new boss, or is this the way the bosses work?
This is the way the bosses work, but I think for the first time, maybe the first time in at least modern history, this whole thing known as the Internet and known as YouTube and known as viral videos is changing the way that people are able to witness and see how the parties just run over their own people with absolutely no regard for what the delegates within their parties or voters in their parties have to say or what they feel.
Today, I was watching the Fox network, and Megyn Kelly was showing the teleprompter where she couldn't believe that it was predetermined that this is the way it was going to go, but yet with regard to the invalidation or the disenfranchisement of the Ron Paul delegates, the Tea Party movement, the exact same thing happened with the predetermination, but there seems to be a little bit of a different coverage. If you watch Fox, it didn't happen when the GOP was making it happen. If you watch MSNBC, that didn't happen when people saw it happening. Is this a bipartisan power grab, the only place where we can find bipartisanship?
Well, what you're seeing is the death of journalism in America. I guess it's already died. And so what we have instead is advocacy, where one group will advocate for one party and another media group will advocate for another. And you're absolutely right. Look, we ran the video of John Boehner, Speaker of the House Boehner, standing up on that stage and reading a predetermined, the ayes have it, in the opinion of the chair. The exact same thing happened yesterday. It's identical down to the very language used. The only difference was the mayor of Los Angeles wasn't smooth enough just to get on with it. He goes back and calls for the voice vote 3 times. He calls for it. And it was so clear each time the no's getting louder. At least Boehner had the sense to just push on through, run over people, and keep going.
If you're going to steamroll, with the best of them. But I love the woman that was standing to the right of Villaraigosa, where she said, "Oh, they're going to do what they're going to do. Let them do it." That kind of a thing. Like, let them at least make them
just
think.
Move on. Just keep going, she said.
Yeah, just keep going. Because this is what we do. This is how we steamroll the electorate. But, all kidding aside, Mr. Swann, what is it that we do with this knowledge of and the ability now, courtesy of the Internet, YouTube, and what you're doing there with Reality Check? What do we do knowing that we've been steamrolled, both Republicans and Democrats alike?
Well, I think what we have to do is you get back down to the very grassroots level, beginning with, look, I'll tell you, I've heard from a bunch of Tea Party groups since last week. We ran the story last Thursday on what Boehner did. And since that time, I've heard from a number of Tea Party groups across the country who have said that they're holding meetings this week trying to decide whether they're just going to push away from the get out the vote effort and tell the Republican Party, we're not working for you guys anymore. Instead, we're going to start building something else or work on building some other apparatus or get into behind the liberty movement, do something other than what we've been doing, because we're not going to contribute to a system that is disenfranchising us and won't listen to us. And I'm hopeful that they will push forward in that, and I'm hopeful that Democratic groups this week will do the very same thing.
Are you suggesting, Mr. Swann, that you hand this election to the socialist Barack Obama? Is that what you're suggesting?
The guys who were talking to me, too, they were so nervous about saying this. And it was off the record as they were telling me, so I can't tell you who it was. But they were saying, look, we understand that there's, we don't want to hand the election to someone else. But at the same time, we don't want our own dictators. We don't want the Republican Party dictating to us what we can and cannot do, and certainly changing the rules on us. And even as pushing through this vote when it's so clearly scripted. If the grassroots in the Republican Party, and if the grassroots in the Democratic Party do not at this moment in history stand up and say, we're going to flip these parties because this is not working, if they refuse to do it, it's over for them. And I think this goes back to why this whole idea of a two-party system in this country is so flawed, because you can't get on the ballot as an independent, and you can't get on the ballot and get into debates if you're a libertarian candidate. You're not able to get in there if you're a constitutional candidate. And so this two-party system is so flawed that they don't really need the people because of exactly what you just said, because so many people will come back and say, well, yeah, my party did this, and yeah, the leadership's corrupt, but if I don't support my guy, then these guys get it.
Yeah, well, I know you're not naming names. I'll name some names who I know must be a little bit upset about this. Senator Jim DeMint of South Carolina, probably Dick Armey and Matt Kibbe from Freedom Works, and some other like-minded Tea Party grassroots movement type of organizations that I did see early on kind of acquiescing to Mitt Romney when early on they said he's not the guy. And I even talked to them about that on the air. I said, are you just throwing principles out the window and kind of doing that soft transition to, well, just this one last time? You're not going to give us Johnny McAmnesty all over again. And now we got Mitt Romney, Johnny McAmnesty 2.0. Just this one last time, and this, the most important election of our lifetimes, we're going to ask you to suck it up, and we promise we'll never do it to you again. I mean, how many times can they do it to you again, both Republicans and Democrats, until you get to the point where you look the fool?
Well, and I love how you mentioned about the media and their part in all this. I love how media is completely missing the story, even conservative media like Fox. The neocon media is what I should call them. But, the Republican media that says, well, look at, as you said, God being rammed down the throats of Democrats who don't want him. It's not that Democrats don't want God. It's that Democrats voted against the platform of the Democratic Party being that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. That's a controversial thing to try to ram through at a convention. Maybe, just maybe, you should have talked to people about this ahead of time. And maybe you should have said, hey, this is where we're headed, this is what we're thinking, what do y'all think, and gotten an idea of what they thought in advance. And it's all so political because media always misses the point, don't they? They always national media miss the real story, which has nothing to do with what the issue was. It wouldn't matter if they wanted to change the party platform to say bubblegum in every home. Who cares what the issue is? The issue is that it got rammed down their throats. And so Fox will stay away from that, and a lot of the national media will stay away from the actual issue because it reflects badly on their own guys.
Hugely important point, Mr. Swann. Ben Swann with us, anchorman in Cincinnati, Fox affiliate WXIX, Fox 19, host of the nationally popular Reality Check segment, Facebook.com/Ben Swann Reality Check, and YouTube.com/Ben Swann Reality Check. The issue, yes, God's an important issue. Jerusalem, important. The invalidation of delegates or the disenfranchisement of certain movements, all important in and of themselves. But more importantly, as you point out, and I agree with Mr. Swann, is that what you might think is important today that's not important to you tomorrow may become important to you when that tomorrow becomes today. Because it doesn't matter what the issue is. The bigger issue is the fact that the two-party system that has a stranglehold of the status quo thinks that they can do whatever they want to do without suffering any repercussions or consequences of their actions. Sooner or later, there's going to be a blowback.
There has to be. And I think that's going to be when we look back in a couple of years at this presidential election. And there's a lot of people whose heads will explode when I say this. But I think the guy who gets elected, whether it is President Obama gets reelected or Mitt Romney takes it for the first time, regardless of who gets elected, that will be the small storyline of this election season. The big storyline is going to be that there was a huge pushback finally against this idea of these two parties, and that a liberty movement within both parties began this year because of the disenfranchisement of the people who are supposed to have a voice and didn't have one. I think that will be the major storyline out of this year when we look back on it in a couple of years.
Let's say they muscle through Mitt Romney or they muscle through God and Jerusalem on the Democrat side. Will the GOP and or the Democrats suffer down ballot, meaning that the grassroots movements that would be out there making sure Republicans maintain control of the House or get control of the Senate or not? Will that be where the grassroots movement is going to exact their revenge on this big power grab?
I think that the only reason the Republican Party even allows the so-called Tea Party candidates or the Tea Party themselves to have a voice is because they need them, not because they want them. We know that. But they need them because of the fact that these Tea Party groups have become so grassroots, and they're good at getting out the vote, and they're good at networking with each other, again, via internet and social media and whatever it might be. And they need them badly. And I think that the only tool that those grassroots groups have is to really fight back and to turn on the party themselves and to say, look, we're going to try to flip the party from the bottom up. One thing that I think the Liberty Movement learned this year that they had never known prior to really middle of 2008 and then certainly moving into this season is that these elections are not won and lost at the ballot boxes. They're won and lost in state party leadership backroom deals. And so if you're going to fix the parties, you can't just worry about candidates. You have to worry about who you're electing as your state committeeman and state committee woman, who's in the positions at the top of the party within counties and within states. And that's where grassroots, both Democrat and Republican grassroots, really have a chance to change things. Change those people, and you change the national election.
Let me ask you this. We got about 90 seconds left. This might not be a fair amount of time, but, people will say, well, Ben Swann, Jerry Doyle, all you others out there that just don't like it the way it is, well, just get out and go somewhere else. Just, start your own damn party. Is something like that a possibility, or does the change have to occur within the party?
I think that remains to be seen. We'll see what happens. I think it could happen with another party. The difference is, again, the only way to make that happen is to get fairness in the debate process and how those presidential commissions are run and the way that they allow certain candidates to get up and debate. If we had 5 or 6 candidates up for debate like we did during a primary, it'd be a very different story. But right now, they strangle and kind of choke out anyone who's on the other side and then say, well, go start your own party. Well, it'd be easier to do if the system weren't rigged, but the system's rigged right now.
Right. A lot of work to do both inside and outside the party. I know you're working hard on it. Ben Swann, thank you, sir. Always appreciate you carving out some time for this here on the program.